I'd now like to welcome all of our remaining speakers to join us, switch on their videos, and participate in a panel discussion, which will be led by Kate. So Kate, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I would like to thank our speakers again. I know it's pretty late in some of your locations. This is a live session, so we do have, a live audience. So I encourage everyone to drop questions in the Q&A session, and I will ask Franco to intervene if there will be some interesting questions there. And I think that one of the important takeaways of today's panel discussion is that there's such a wide variety of biomarkers and its practical applications. And it is wonderful to see what a positive effect it has on aging research and how it advances our longevity industry as a whole. I think also that with the rise with the increased focus on precision health, longevity biomarkers will become increasingly important, both for R&D, success of the companies, as well as the overall health of the population. So with that, I will ask a few questions, and I encourage our speakers to raise questions as well if something appears of particular interest. So I will start with that. We know that today there is a wide range of existing biomarkers and their practical applications. What, in your view, are the new emergent trends of new biomarkers, and what role will AI play in their detection and validation?
Well, I would welcome both Anastasia and Ryan to field this, because they both gave very exciting presentations about rather new multimodal biomarkers. In the case of Anastasia, it was image-based. In the case of Ryan, it was voice-based. On the topic of AI, I think that most of us would agree here that AI is going to play a not just complementary but necessary role in all of this. There's the volume of biomarker data and the new types of biomarkers that are being validated. This is just going to continue growing. It's already fairly mountainous, fairly unapproachable by humans. So AI is necessary, and that trend's only going to continue, both from a raw volume of data perspective and from a multimodal data perspective, trying to integrate and synthesize all of these multimodal biomarkers. But with that being said, Anastasia, Ryan, do you have any comments?
Yeah, if you don't mind, let me probably start. I basically think that the very idea for us having multiple biomarkers is being able to get actionable advice and assessment of our health condition or our longevity status as soon as possible. So I personally see that in the recent decade, we see that there's happening a shift from, I would call them more traditional biomarkers, like coming from epigenetic clocks, methylation, using other types of omics data, towards exploring other data that should address, address criteria that Franco, you have highlighted. So first, it's availability of the data and being able to standardize it, as I think I really tried to highlight standardization in my presentation. So these types of data are massively enabled by multiple trackers and different services to track, for example, weather condition. And I personally think that being able to use different devices, different wearables is becoming a big trend. So you even can see within the cosmetics area. So L'Oreal released a UV tracker. And talking about, where it logically goes, I think that since we're getting more and more biomarkers, it does make sense to combine them into functional groups. For example, your movement biomarkers, like heard the presentation from Gero talking about activity biomarkers, or it could be your skin biomarkers, or it could be female health-related biomarkers, or maybe we will address not only the physical biomarkers, but biomarkers of our mental health. So how, what are our decisions? So what longevity horizon do we envision? So the way we are thinking. And I think that's basically a way to go. So getting a look at more available data for wearables and connected devices, and at the same time exploring other alternatives to traditional omics biomarkers. And I think today we had amazing presentations highlighting a lot of new alternative and a lot of promising biomarkers.
Thank you.
And I'd be happy to follow up on that, at least briefly. Just to say that I think that in our investigation, we would absolutely agree that the multi-omic biomarkers are the way to go. I think that looking at any one particular platform always leaves, I would say, some additional questions. And I think that looking at a more comprehensive data set altogether is extremely helpful. And particularly, you know, in the epigenetic space, there recently was some publications on ways to measure methylation in the brain due to methylation-specific diets and MRIs. I think that's particularly exciting as well.
Great, thank you. Well, speaking of continuing the topic of AI, what do you think will be its key role? Will it be finding new biomarkers or assessing the existing ones?
Yeah, to sort of continue for that, I'd love to jump in there as well. I think that definitely, you know, right now, even from a methylation specific standpoint, you know, at the largest scale platforms for sort of array-based technology, we're only looking at 850,000 approximate CpGs out of the 29 million CpGs per cell. And most of the investigation has been carried around only in blood. And so by far, I would say that our investigations, and even the methylation clocks that exist today, are only a fraction of what they could be in the future. And so I think that definitely new algorithms, finding new biomarkers from advanced data sets and more robust data sets are really hold the hope to some of the best clinical biomarkers. I think that, you know, every day almost there's a new algorithm that comes out that has some particular advantage over the others. And I think that type of innovation will not stop anytime soon.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have any other comments here?
Just briefly, that it's probably going to be a bit of both, of course. The volume of existing biomarker data, we've just scraped the surface, the tip of the iceberg, as Ryan mentioned. Besides that, we're seeing an explosion of new categories and types of biomarkers being validated as being useful. AI is going to be critical for both of those. Yeah.
And maybe just as last comment, probably the third thing where AI can help will be to also identify the interrelations and the causalities and functional relations between those biomarkers, and hopefully also create, as we mentioned, the first question, you know, a subset or a cluster or some sort of multifunctional biomarker cluster. And hopefully also AI will help us to somehow at least pre-test the validity and you know, and efficacy also and applicability in the clinic. So the in-clinical trials that are already existing, hope this will also evolve and become more of a standard, and become more of a tool that will allow us to, you know, pre-validate the markers.
Could not agree more, Evelyn. You know, AI gets a lot of spotlight for accelerating drug discovery per se, but equally exciting things are happening on the level of biomarkers as well. So yeah, great point.
Well, and again, a question to the panel. What type of biomarker do you think is likely to be the most actionable and the most successful one, or the group of biomarkers, rather?
I think following up on what Ryan just said, I think it's all about the interconnectability of different biomarkers. I think there will not be the one digital biomarker. There will be a group of disease and condition specific biomarkers. And just to mention another point here in this discussion, I think it's also about the regulators to give us a very clear framework on how to medically validate clinical grade biomarkers. I think this is one of the most important things in the future, especially when it comes to digital biomarkers, having a really clear framework on how to validate and being clinically accepted in the end. I think this is quite important here.
You know, there is a pressing need for highly actionable biomarkers. Very often biomarkers which are good enough, but which are non-invasive, cost-effective, highly scalable by certain stakeholders, whether it's a company or whether it's a national government trying to implement longevity policies, etc., like the UK is doing with their goal to add 5 years of healthy life expectancy to their population by the year 2035, etc. Actionability is often a better trade-off than accuracy. That being said, you know, I'm a big fan of blood-based biomarkers, especially when coupled with AI and deep learning though I'm biased because I've published a few papers on blood-based biomarkers. But that being said, we're also seeing an explosion, as viewers are probably aware, of digital biomarkers and biomarkers which are highly obtainable through consumer devices like voice, like image, etc. It's really great to see these things stepping up in order to meet that pressing need. And indeed, the new analytical report from Aging Analytics Agency produced for Longevity International, which we launched yesterday. 200 of the 300 companies profiled there have at least one market-ready product, whether it's consumer-based or in the clinic. So
let me jump in. So all the biomarkers that we offer at Ginfinity Precision Medicine are actionable now. And we have certain biomarkers that we offer to consumers. And we probably have a dozen or so more biomarkers that we offer to researchers, but not to consumers, because I don't think they are quite actionable yet. So let's discuss what biomarkers are actually actionable. So you need at least two very basic fundamental elements for a biomarker to be actionable. The first one is on the nature of the biomarker, the validity of the biomarker. Are the biomarkers clearly validated by sound scientific studies and large scale, not just on a few patients? That can be often the case. So very well clinically or scientifically validated biomarkers. That's the requirement number one. Requirement number two, you must have solutions to act upon this information. And you can have very well validated biomarkers, but if there's nothing you can do, that's not going to be actionable. So once you have these two essential elements in place, a biomarker becomes actionable. And there are many actionable biomarkers, fortunately, but many of the newer biomarkers that are being developed will probably have to work on both fronts for them to become more actionable. A lot of progress are being made, but we're not quite there for some of the biomarkers yet.
Great, thank you. Well, we mentioned today the silver tsunami or the age wave. There are different colloquial terms for that. So, and we know that the chronological age of global population is increasing due to advancements of medicine. So, what about biological age? Is there, any opinion on that?
So, okay, if I may just, try to rephrase your question. So, is your thinking around how is our population becoming biologically younger, or did I get the question wrong?
Well, it's a question. So we know what is the demographically chronological age of the population, but are we becoming? What is your opinion about the biological age of?
Sure. Okay. Well, let me probably try to answer this question, but I think I will be happy if colleagues will join me, because obviously I'm more focused, on skin aging. But overall, I think it was well depicted today on our conference and this panel that primarily a lot of stress and adverse effects of our environment, they have a very big impact on our longevity status, and we see that our biomarkers do decline. So this is why we now know that we need a good meditation, a good exercise, a good diet. I overall think that we now see that in many of well-developed countries, we see that life expectancy is raising, and since we're consciousness of patients is raising, awareness that there are techniques that allow them to extend longevity. I would say that in this sense, chronological age of the population, so the population is aging, it's a well-known fact, right? So we ideally want to somehow mitigate the aging population with chronologically aging position, with the fact that we at least can stay at the same time biologically. It's very difficult, to reverse. At the first place, we need to be able, to stop aging. So I think the overall trend will be that we will live longer life, we will live more quality life. So in that sense, the population biological age ideally should decrease over time. However, we had really striking events the last 2 years, which I think dramatically decreased life expectancy, dramatically decreased the quality of life. A lot of planned operations and planned care was postponed and delayed for the time, but we even cannot foresee for how much time it will take longer. So I would say if we are able to survive this crisis, then probably we will, in a time frame of maybe 5-10 years, see that our population will gradually become biologically younger. So that's my perspective, and I'm happy if colleagues will join me here.
I would just like to say that it's, when we're talking about population level health, it's a highly multivariable issue, and it's very hard to give a clear answer, Kate. But I would generally agree with Anastasia. We're seeing a lot of longevity therapies, technologies, etc., behavioral interventions being validated to an increasing extent, entering market readiness via either the clinic or consumer product, etc. And this, when coupled with the rising interest of population health and actual longevity initiatives by governments, which is a thing. We're entering the age of longevity politics, which is not the topic of today, but factors in here. Yeah, I think that we'll see improvements on a population level, at least at the aggregate. Evelyn, I saw that you unmuted yourself at the beginning of this question. Did you want to add something?
Yes, I think it's a great question. So I believe rather than seeing a reversal for the upcoming realistically years, we will see some other shift, hopefully, which is implementing biological age first as the definition of age in aging, right? So we have now achieved, thanks to also Franco, one of your great achievements, right, with other colleagues, was to actually give us clinicians now the chance to categorize within ICD-11 old age and aging, at least as a disease or as a symptom, and then also as an addition causality. So that's wonderful. And now I think the debate is going towards how do we define aging in measurable terms, and thanks to biomarkers, now we know that we can measure biological age. So I think the shift would be on a population public health level, hopefully towards classifying diseases, age-related diseases, as related to biological age, and also then allowing biological age to be some sort of a predictor, for diseases. So again, for example, in oncology, but also in other like in neurodegeneration, or even in infectious diseases. So we saw, again, with COVID, I couldn't agree more that age is related to it. So measuring biological age, and then I also agree with Anastasia that hopefully we'll see more and more of a reversal and slowing down of the biological age. That will be a big task of longevity medicine to achieve that at some point of time, also on the global and population level. Ultimately, of course, by the statistic, we will see a growing population also with a growing biological age, because we cannot expect, I guess, living forever. So keeping the biological age always at a low level, but it will always be probably something that that the trend will be the same. We'll see a tsunami of people who are coming with a silver biological age, because we are all aging. But the shifts that should happen on a global level, global health level, would be rather to redefine age and aging towards biological age as a surrogate.
Yeah, very interesting perspective, and I couldn't agree more. And thank you, by the way, for your kind comment about the ICD-11 work that we did, adding the new extension code for age-related diseases via ICD-11 in 2018. Appreciate it.
Well, Franco, I know we're slightly running over. It's been a great pleasure to meet the influencers in the sphere, and we would like to continue holding these events. Biomarkers are actionable, are very important in R&D and how it translates to success of the companies in the space as well as overall human health. So I'm very happy that I was part of this event. I definitely learned a lot, and I hope we will meet again in not so distant future. And thank you everyone for attending, and for the audience for being here as well.